Hey guys, welcome back to the Patar Project. I'm your host, Nick Patar. Today we are joined by Jamie Usher. Jamie, brother, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to jump on the potty.
Hey, mate, it's a pleasure to be on here. It really is a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
It's all good. I love to start my podcast with gratefuls, man. So what's something you're grateful for today?
Well, I reckon, particularly today, I'm grateful for the good weather, but also I think how, particularly with how much studying I've been doing at the moment, how helpful my wife has been and how understanding my child has been during the time of hectic study. So I'm definitely grateful for that at the moment. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day, and it's good that you have that family network supporting you, especially as we're talking off air about psychology and your studying. Like that will take a lot out of you.
Yeah, that as I'm like, yeah, very appreciative and grateful of the understanding that I've got from my wife and my daughter, but also like, yeah, just how like I've got to take advantage of that. As in, like, I don't mean in a bad way. I mean like they're grateful, so I need to do as well as what I can during that time. Like I don't want to waste that.
Mm, exactly. Make the most of that time, not piss it up against
Mm,
the wall. And you're doing that,
yeah,
and your thesis. God, I couldn't imagine doing a thesis.
yeah. I was in your position when I was 24 as well, mate.
It's funny because I actually went to uni for a year and a half. I was studying
Yeah,
sport and exercise science, and it's just like it's not me. Like all this theory stuff, and
yeah,
I dropped out of it. But who knows? I
yeah.
could go back in the future because as I said, I am really interested in psychology. It's man, the
Yeah.
brain is very interesting.
Oh, it's super interesting. Like you could go into the more like real high level kind of neuroscience part of it of the brain, but it's not so much that I find interesting. I think it's just more how you can attribute just the lower level stuff of the brain to just the everyday things that we do and how we think and how we behave. I love that kind of stuff as well.
Mm. And I think because I'm more interested in because like I'm naturally introverted, so I always stood back from the crowd and kind of people watch and watched
Yeah.
how people moved and how they communicate and stuff like that. So I think that's
Mhm.
where my interest came from.
Yeah. Okay. Well, man, you never know. If it's something you want to follow, go and do it one day when when things settle down with you. When this is, when you know what you want to when you do a bit further. When you know what you want to do a bit further. If that's something you want to chase, absolutely go do it. It's been life changing for me. Like just for all the things that I've learned and how I've been able to like change things in my own life and that kind of stuff. It's been fantastic. So and like and I love it. And if you've got any interest in it in any way, absolutely,
Mm.
it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's great when you can learn something and then actually implement it as well.
Oh, that's the thing. So, and like I can implement it in what I do with this kind of stuff, as in like on social media, which has been really cool in some of the videos that I make like recently, which I've really loved doing. But also like because I work in a school as a youth worker in a wellbeing team, I can actually use a lot of what I learn as well, which is great.
That's awesome. And for people who don't know, who is Jamie Usher? Give me who are you, your upbringing, and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, my upbringing. Maybe my upbringing might have to be something we spend a little bit more time on later because my upbringing is pretty huge. But but my upbringing was my first of all. So yeah, I'm Jamie Usher. I'm under, I guess, under the other name of the Mind Tradie. Um, so I'm 37. I study psychology. I'm an ex-tradesman prior to that. So at the age of 26, I had to have a change of career due to losing most of my vision during due to a health condition. That's kind of what put me to being in a different position now, where I'm studying psychology on the path to being a psychologist. That's what I'm doing now. But my upbringing was an interesting one. I guess yeah grew up with some interesting particularly step parents around me, and I guess gave me some experience with I guess some neglect, domestic violence, and taking on protector roles of parents and that kind of stuff, which has helped me learn a lot about myself now. But I mean, for years being involved in that kind of stuff made me have no self worth, no self esteem, and and think nothing of myself due to the things that I was a part of and experience and the effect that it had on me. So, but yeah, I can go into more detail if you want. Just depends how far you want me to go, mate.
Yeah, I can resonate. Like with your upbringing, was your father in the picture at all? Because you mentioned step parents, or was it just your mum?
Okay, yeah. So while my mum was still like 6 months pregnant with me, my dad actually left. And so while my mum was still pregnant, and he actually did it on her birthday, the prick. So look, he's still in my life now, but but back then, he left her and he was seeing somebody else back then, because he was pretty much cheating on her. Um, and just in the years to follow, he met someone else and they had kids, and then my mum ended up meeting somebody else and having and getting married again as well. So I had a step parent with my stepmom with my dad, and I had a stepdad with we're going, when my mum married somebody else. So yeah, I had two step parents, and step parents are notorious for not being great with children who aren't their own. Not always, but pretty common.
And it would have been
So,
hard for you as a kid having, I guess, all these step parents and siblings. Like, as you
yeah,
mentioned before, you didn't know your self worth. You didn't feel like you kind of belonged, and you know,
nah,
you didn't really know what life was looking like for you because at that age, you don't really know who you are. And then you have all this stuff
no,
happening around you. Like, it would have been
yeah.
really tough on you.
Well, I guess so. I think looking back, we can say that would have been tough. And I think the thing is, because you don't know any better as a kid.
Mm.
Like, so it's not like at the time I was saying, "Oh, this is tough." But yeah, you're right. Like in hindsight, it was a tough situation, especially like with. I guess I can go into more detail, if you don't mind, and say particularly with one of the relationships, which was my stepmom at the time. She she treated us horrendously, like to the point where you'd say it was verbal abuse, and how I've expressed it to other people before. And I hope this doesn't people don't like. I hope they don't mind this term, but I've got no other way of explaining it. But we, myself and my brother, by my stepmom, at many points were emotionally raped, as in like there was no physical abuse, but how she treated us was horrendous. And that was kind of on and off. Like she would be hot and cold, but when she was cold, she was really cold. Um, and then and the so that was a house that I lived at. Um, I not lived at, but I spent say weekends with. And then the house that I lived at with my mum, and spent most of the time there was my stepdad. And he was violent to mum. And there was four siblings. Sorry, there was four kids in the house, so three other siblings with me, and I was the youngest. So when my mum married my stepdad, I was four, turning five, and then was my brother who was 8, and there was a 9-year-old, and then I think an 11-year-old when they married. Um, and yeah, within about 3 or 4 weeks of them actually probably getting married and moving into a house, he started to become really violent. And then like after a little while, when I was, I guess, not just only witness to the violence, but I guess it was like I experienced as well some of it. And I experienced it because I was trying to protect mum, because I remember a time when something my stepdad started getting violent at the dinner table when he was drunk. And then we all ran, me and my other brothers run down to our bedrooms. We were hiding under the beds, and I remember thinking to myself as a kid, like, if we're down here, no one's helping mum, so I have to go back and help her. And that kind of attitude kind of ended up getting me, I guess, more in trouble and hurt. But I mean, I didn't mind. I did not care at the time, as long as I was protecting mum. But yeah, interesting households when I was growing up.
Wow, I couldn't imagine what that would be like. Like, I'm grateful that I have both my parents in my life. Yeah, I don't have the best relationship with my father, and
Yeah,
growing up, I had those kind of same feelings of uh, like not knowing my self worth and where I belonged because of
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But I think there's always a positive to come out of the negative situation. Like for you, you growing up
yeah,
in that environment, now you being a father, the
yeah.
father that you don't want to be.
Mm.
So you learn from those experiences.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. I totally agree. I'm gonna be honest, man. There's not one aspect of my life, even in the worst part of my life, what I would say that even from my childhood, regret being a part of, because every single experience that I was a part of, or I was witness to, or whatever. Say it's particularly when I was a kid. Well, it makes me who I am now,
Mm.
and it makes me be able to work with people. It makes me be able to be empathetic with children and teenagers and adults as well, but particularly children of that age. I've got a good understanding and an empathy of how to work with them. And if I didn't go through that time, I most likely wouldn't, or I wouldn't to the extent that I do today. And the kind of person who I am today, who I'm proud of, man. Like I've got a resilience that, like, nothing is going to get in my way of doing anything ever. Nothing will ever get in my way. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what happens around me. Like, I will never stop. I'll never quit. My upbringing has got a lot to do with that, and not through because my parents or caregivers showed me that was the way, but because I guess the experiences that I was involved in, plus I guess my personality, formed this attitude of I'm not giving up. I've been through too much. I'm just gonna like nothing's gonna stop me. So if I didn't have those experiences, I might not have the attitude that I do today.
Mm. And everything happens for a reason. You know, you may not see it at the time,
Yeah,
but down the track, you look back and go, wow, that happened for
yeah,
that reason. This is why who I am today.
yeah, 100%. And so that I've said to people before, like, if I didn't have that, or certain experiences in my childhood that would have built a resilience, and may well I may maybe it's in my DNA to be naturally resilient without negative coping patterns that and sorry coping mechanisms that other people experience. Who knows, maybe it's a mixture of both, but without, I think, both of those, particularly experiences when I was younger, I may not have been able to handle the experience when I was 26, where I lost most of my vision, and I handled it in a way where I didn't freak out, and I'm like, all right, we've got to move on. I've got to move on. What are we going to do? What are we going to do for work now? How are we going to live? How are we going to do this? How are we going to take care of it? Like I could have like completely crumbled, and I didn't. So the experience that I was a part of, I'm totally grateful for, because it's helped me be able to handle many other things.
Mm. And you mentioned losing your vision. So before that, you were a
Mm-hmm.
tradie, and were you also like a fighter kickboxer before that as well?
Yeah, I was actually, yeah. And good recess, mate. Appreciate that. Yeah, I fought around Victoria as a kickboxer. I had 9 fights, and like I actually had another fight lined up just in the process of me losing my vision. So I didn't actually stop for any other reason but me losing my vision. And then yeah, in like July, August 2010 is when I started to notice that I was having to zoom in on my computer while I was doing my banking for my business, because I was running my own business at the time as well as a tradesman. And um and then, yeah, in about another month or so, month or two maybe, I'd lost about 90%. And then, yeah, so today I sit at about 10%, just a little bit under 10%. Yeah, so it happened pretty quick.
Wow, that is crazy. And like, it wouldn't have given you enough time to really adapt to it. One day you have
Nah, you
vision,
know
and
what?
then it's kind of gone.
I think, yeah. I didn't. I don't know. To be honest, it's probably. I look back on that time wondering how I handled it the way I did, because when it was when it was originally happening, and I was, yeah, running my business. Like when I was, say, in the early stages, in the first few weeks, and I could still kind of see my face in the mirror, because I can't see my face in the mirror anymore. But at the time, still could a little bit. Each week, I was noticing different parts of my face I couldn't see anymore, and I was still trying to do my hair and get ready for work. And I think maybe the fact that because I was really busy at the time and I was still kickboxing, it was almost like I didn't have enough time to comprehend what was actually happening until bang, it was actually there. And then I couldn't drive my car anymore. I couldn't read my tape measure anymore. I'm like, okay, fucking hell, this is something. I've got to do something about this. What are we going to do? I need to really start looking at this. So yeah, but I don't know, maybe I'm stubborn.
So tell me, what does 10% vision look like? You said you can't see yourself in the mirror. Like looking at the screen now, what can you see?
I can see that there's like a computer in front of me. I can't actually see you on the screen, but I know that you're kind of in the middle, so I'll know where to direct my vision. So what I'm looking at here in this kind of in my center of my vision, it's all kind of blurry, and I only see peripherally out really here. And so if I'm looking at my phone, I'll have to look really close up. Luckily though, these days on my iPads and my phone, and even on the laptop, they all have zoom function, so I can zoom in and see photos and that kind of stuff. So I'm really fortunate.
Yeah, so you're
So,
grateful to be in the times that we live in now. Like,
oh,
so
10 years ago.
you can't drive, can't you?
No,
No.
no, no, I can't drive. No, I'll go because I guess the thing, like, actually, I don't know what the percentage is. We can't actually drive anymore. I don't know if there's a percentage or whatever it is, but like, yeah, I'm legally blind. I'm very, very legally blind. But I guess I think people can also, because of the way that I get myself around, I'm so confident in the way I get myself around. And I'm also very fortunate the way that the version of like a vision impairment that I have enables me to get around without a guide dog. And
Yeah.
not because people that have, say, guide dogs or whatever have less vision than me, but they might have a different vision impairment. So where they might be able to actually see in this middle part of vision, but and that makes it harder for them to say see gutters and all that kind of stuff. Where I'm the opposite, where I can see peripherally and kind of like where my kind of feet are walking and all that kind of stuff. Not well, but well enough that I can still get myself around. But I think that can confuse people sometimes, so they think that I can actually see well. It happens all the time. And because I'm so confident as well as in getting myself around, and like, I wouldn't care if I bumped into anything or whatever, and I just like, I'll walk everywhere, and I've been handling it for 10 years or 11 years. Like, people can mistake that for me being able to see well.
Yeah,
Anyway,
they wouldn't pick it unless they knew.
yeah, that's the thing. It happens all the time. But anyway, well, like I'd rather be. It's almost a compliment. You know what I mean? And it's almost a compliment.
Unless you don't have to care about what you wear and what you look like.
Oh man, that's the thing. People would think that, but I'm still vain.
Yeah.
I'm still. If anything, where in the last few years where I became aware, I was very aware of how I didn't used to think very much of myself. And there was a stage of like a long stage of my life, where I could say decades of my life, where I didn't think enough of myself. And then say maybe because of that I didn't take I guess what I would consider enough care of myself, whether that's on the inside or outside. I'm making up for that now. So I still want to look as fit as I can and look as good as I can, and like regardless of how well I can actually see myself in the mirror, I still want to take as good a care as what I can, which is good. I feel good about that.
Yeah, that's what life's about, is feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely,
Now,
absolutely.
you mentioned youth work.
Yeah.
How'd you get into that? Was that because of your upbringing, that's something you kind of wanted to do, work with youth, or?
Actually, no, it actually wasn't. It was because what did I do? I started studying at TAFE, maybe like, so 2 years after my vision impairment, like for a whole 2 year period after my vision impairment came on, I couldn't find work because my whole background was basically in construction. And then for 2 years of having no luck finding work, I kind of like, you know what, I need to find something else. So I went to TAFE to study community development, which is, yeah, working with people and empowering people. I thought that'd be interesting. And then 12 months into doing that, which is a two-year diploma, but 12 months into doing that, I'm like, sorry, actually, someone actually said to me, you need to work with young people. It's maybe just the way I was talking, or I must have talked about my upbringing or what I'm really passionate about. And they're like, you need to work with youth. You'd be fantastic working with youth. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But it wasn't something I ever thought, I need to do this in any way. But yeah, like I volunteered at the Frankston Council Youth Service. I volunteered there for a while, and then eventually got a job there. And I'm like, oh yeah, I actually do like this. This is quite cool. So that's how that started. Yeah,
What do you like most about it?
I think just relating to the kids that are pretty much who I was back in
Mm.
the day. But it doesn't really matter whether you're a boy or a girl. Just being able to work with the kids, or because I work in a high school, work with the students that are in positions like I was, and I guess being that person that I didn't have back in the day for whatever reason, because it wasn't really well-being back in high school, back when I was in high school. But yeah, being able to be that person that or one of the people, sorry, that can help them out and maybe be a bit more positive. And so even if their home life is hectic, even if their home life is totally negative, or there's neglect there, or there's violence there, they're going to come to school and they're going to talk to me, and I'm going to be positive for them, no matter what. No matter what is happening in my day, no matter what is happening in their day, they're going to meet me, or they're going to chat with me, and they're gonna know that I'm positive, and they're going to get something from that. Well, hopefully, anyway. So that's what I like about it.
Yeah, it's great to have people like you, especially in schools, and it for you, you'll be able to connect on a deeper level with them, especially if they've gone through a lot of the same stuff that you did growing up, and you can build that connection. And
Yeah,
because they know that, they can feel more comfortable opening up and telling you about, their home life, and then
yeah.
that allows you to actually help them a lot more too.
Yeah, well, that's why, as I said, I feel really fortunate to be able to have had the experiences that I did. So then, yeah, look, I can be someone who, yeah, experienced, say, a vision impairment and lost his job, and couldn't do that anymore. But because of my upbringing, I've got a connection with people, or I can build a connection with people that it isn't easy to do. Um, but because of the things I've experienced, I do that. I've got a good knack for that, doing that. So I feel really fortunate. So I like being able to use. Actually, I don't just like being able to use. I'm like, I think this, like, I love being able to use my experiences to be able to connect with people. Like, and I can tell you get that as well. I get that from you too. Like, you definitely love what you do, even if it's talking to guests or talking to people in real life or whatever it is. We get this special energy from being able to use our experiences, or talking about our experiences, whether it's, say, you talking about your anxiety or your fears or whatever, that kind of stuff. I get that kind of feeling as well when I talk to people. So yeah, it's really fortunate.
Yeah, it's such a grateful feeling, like being able to share your story, and then that story being able to help someone through, maybe their tough situation. You know,
Yeah,
it it's humbling.
yeah, absolutely. You're right. That's a good word for it. Is humbling. Absolutely.
Now, with COVID and you working with children, how has it affected the mental health of the kids?
It's definitely, yeah, it's definitely changed things. Fortunately, working in the well-being space, we're able to be in the area where I work in Frankston North. Um, we're able to be in a lot of the days. So, like, if you're a teacher, you might have to be, say, working from home and doing most of your work over the computer. But yeah, because there is many vulnerable students that work in my area. Um, yeah, we've been able to be in. But yeah, it has changed a lot. Like, there is a lot of mental health stuff going on. I mean, if you read a lot of the research that's out at the moment, the mental health is totally on the rise in young people at the moment because of mental health. I guess the negative aspects of mental health um, are on the rise because of COVID. It's no surprise. I guess just like adults as well. But yeah, kids are experiencing it, and yeah, in many different ways. But I mean, also, I guess one of the positives that's come out of it is being able to build connections as well, like, and have different conversations, and being able to build relationships in this time. So there's a real balance of negative and positive being able to work in, particularly school in this time in the well-being area. So yeah, it is definitely on the rise. But I think we're doing what we can about it, as
Mm.
in, like, with schools being able to change what we do, and making calls or getting kids to come in, and all that kind of stuff. But it's been interesting.
Yeah, it would be hard on the teachers and even like the parents that have to like homeschool their
Oh
kids.
no,
Like,
yeah.
man, I'm I have, so much gratitude towards teachers now and what they have to put up with.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I'm glad I'm not a teacher. I'm glad I work in another aspect of school, because the preparation, particularly last year when it was all new, it was a bit crazy. My wife's a teacher, so I saw her do that. So yeah, it was pretty full on. They definitely earned their money last year, earned their money in holidays last year. So yeah, they hopefully it was a little bit easier on them this year, second time around, but don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, interesting stuff.
But it's definitely true what you said about there's a positive to come out of it. Like when I go for my runs and walks, it's good to see so many families out with their kids and,
Yeah,
spending that time building those relationships that they may not have been able to do prior because of, being so focused on work and stuff. Now we're
yeah,
able to take a step back and really focus on the small things in life that we take for granted.
yeah, absolutely. I think I think one of the things, and yeah, no, I totally agree. One of the things that I think I do, whether it's naturally or not, but it doesn't really matter the situation. I think there's always a positive. Doesn't really matter. There's always going to be positive. And if the positive isn't, um, I guess, made aware straight away, you will find one. If you need to search for it, or whether it's going to come out on its own later, but there is always a positive. So there will be positives that these students or these young people will be able to get out of being in this situation, being a generation that has been part of this. Whatever that is at the moment, we're not sure, but there will be something. There will have to be something. And then even with us, I guess us adults, there has to be positives as well. It's not all bad. As you say, you see families spending more time with each other. Like that's fantastic. Sure, there's been some horrendous things that have happened, but there is also, yeah, there's also been some really nice things as well.
Yeah, it's all about perspective, and mine is the way I look at everything that's happening at the moment. It's a big
Mhm.
challenge. It's a challenge for us to build resilience, to really
Yeah.
focus on ourselves, both mentally and physically. And as we
Mm.
mentioned before, build on those relationships and, building those deep connections with family and friends.
Mm. And like say, yeah, if if you were someone who went through like a business failure due to say COVID, destroying your business because you couldn't run anymore, like this would hopefully be a time where you could transform what you were doing previously into something different rather than saying, okay, COVID just wrecked it. Now, what am I going to do? And like have that destroy you and just keep you down. Hopefully, have the attitude of go, I have the attitude and go, okay, what can I do now? How can I use what I've learned into to do something else? And maybe there's a reason why that happened, and I need to do something else. Like, yeah, as you said before, there's definitely things happen for a reason, and yeah, you need to experience that shitty feeling for maybe a while. But there has to be a reason for something why this is happening, and like on an individual level, I guess, but also on a collective level as well.
And it comes down to being self-aware. So many people are not self-aware about themselves
Mm.
and what's happening around them too, for them to realize what they need to do to, pivot and overcome what's happening.
Yeah, and maybe I find that kind of stuff a little bit easier. I don't know why, but almost maybe I'm stubborn as well. But say when things happen, I'm like, I'm not gonna let this stop me. Like I'm healthy. I'm like I'm able to do everything despite a vision impairment. I'm able to do anything. Realistically, I'm able to do anything that I want to do, whatever I really feel I can achieve and really deserve that I believe that I deserve. I will chase that no matter what happens. So like a lockdown isn't going to stop me from studying well. And if I wasn't able to study anymore because my uni shut down, for example, if that was the case, well, I would have found something else to do. Like I would have found something else to do to occupy my time. I'm never going to be kept down ever. Like, and like, yeah, sure, I could blame, say, Dan Andrews, our prime minister, our person who's running the state, whatever that name is.
Premier.
Premier, sorry. It's like blaming for the gym shutting down. That's why I'm not exercising, but that's not who I am. I'm going to find another way to do something else. The gym shut, well, I'm going to run or I'm going to exercise at home. On another level, or just there always is another way to do something. If you have an energy that you need to use, whether it's an energy to run a business, whether it's an energy to study, whether it's an energy to help people, that energy can be transformed into another area. And it doesn't mean that you have to say, if you were like a plumber and you can't be a plumber anymore, so you're going to be a teacher. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is like whatever that energy is, you can use it for something else. You can use it for like there's another area of life that maybe you need to use it for, or you have to use it for. But I wholeheartedly believe that just because one thing stops, it doesn't mean you have to stop using that energy. You've got a special energy, use it for something else.
Dude, that's inspiring hearing you say that, because let's be honest, you could have easily given up in life with your upbringing, now your vision impairment. You could have said, "Fuck it, I'm over it."
Yeah,
Uh, Gone to a dark place. Suicide could have happened. You don't know, or just totally given up on life. But
yeah,
you've you're not letting that stop you. And so many
yeah,
people do, and they look for excuses and
yeah.
all these avenues to not succeed in life. And you've said, no, fuck it, I'm going to make the most of my life. And you're doing that. And dude, that's so
Mm,
inspiring for all the listeners who make excuses. There's no excuse. Anything is possible when you put your mind to it. And,
mm.
Jamie, you're living proof of that, man.
I appreciate that, man. I really do appreciate that. I think maybe I make it seem um like, how can I say it? So there was incredibly tough days. There was incredibly tough days, but my days and my coping mechanisms, say for a lot of people, as you said before, say maybe people that might have say self-harmed um or suicided, like their coping mechanism in their head, in their brain, as we were talking before about the really interesting things in the brain, is they've got a coping mechanism that says you need to end it for whatever reason. So it's not a weakness thing, it's not a strength thing. So it's not a strength thing that maybe I don't have that coping mechanism, or maybe the fact that they do. It's not a weakness thing, it's just a different coping mechanism. Now, if my coping mechanism was to go, fuck it, I'm really lucky. Like, I'm really lucky that that was my coping mechanism, where other people, for maybe because they might have learned from their parents or caregivers, or maybe it was just it's just in their DNA to have like a first initial coping mechanism that says you need to end it or you need to harm yourself. I'm extremely fortunate that I don't, and I have the opposite of that, where I say, you're going to give this to me? Yeah, I'll fucking show you what I'm like then. I'll show you what I can do in life. Like, I'm extremely fortunate. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And by being fortunate in that way, I want to use it. And not only do I want to use it, I want to, I guess, help other people where I can, and be so like be so energetic and I guess confident in what I do, confident that there is always another way. Hopefully that rubs off.
Yeah. And it's true. Like, have you had those days where you've kind of like, I've had enough, but you've kind of caught yourself and said, fuck no? Or because everyone has bad days, everyone has negative thoughts that
I,
come
I
into their
have
head.
I have I have bad days. Don't get me wrong. I have shitty days, but my bad days are based around different things, and and I think you on your one of your episodes that I listened to, you were talking about self-doubt kicking in,
Yeah.
and that probably triggers your anxiety by the sound of it. I guess similar to me. So my bad days, which I can be held down by temporarily, were previously formed around most of that kind of stuff, self-doubt. um, and I've spoken about this on other podcasts, on my other podcasts, sorry, on my podcast as well, that rejection. And like, some people have some people have a fear of rejection due to my upbringing. I had a fucking belief of rejection. So like, I had a belief, and I'm kind of starting to get over it now, but I had a belief that, say, if I wasn't going to, say, get into that level of uni that I wanted to get into to become a psych, well, it's because I wasn't going to be good enough, and they were going to see a reason to reject me. Or even when I first started seeing my wife back 9 years ago or whatever it is, within the first couple of months where I really started to have feelings for her, my brain was having a freak out, because I'm like, she's going to reject you. She's going to find a reason to reject you. You need to get out of this, or like, these are the things that I kind of, the kind of things that in the past have brought me down. But it's just recently that I've got a much better handle on them. So my down days had to do with, say, no self-worth, no self-belief, and also not only no self-belief, but a belief of rejection. But never, despite how bad my days got, I'm extremely lucky that I don't have that coping mechanism that we're talking about before.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, and you're right about me. Like, when my self doubt kicks in, like that's when my anxiety kicks in. And what I've
Hmm.
recently learned about it is like when I've had that self doubt and like say I want to follow my passions and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
what's been holding me back was not having that relationship with my father. And I felt like I
Hmm.
always had to please him and make him proud. And
Yeah.
so if I didn't have that support or his acceptance, I
Yeah.
couldn't go and follow what I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
I've come across that recently, and it made me realize like, wow, like this is why I didn't do certain things in my life because I didn't quite have that acceptance from him. And
Yeah.
then I
Okay.
realized like, why did I need his acceptance? Like, it's my life. I don't need his acceptance to follow my passions. And
Yeah.
now,
I'm sorry, you might have discussed with your listeners before, but your parents are still together, are they?
yeah.
Okay. And so what's your relationship like with him now?
So like, we live in the same house, everything like that, and we talk, but we've never had. It's always been my dad and my brother, and me and my mum. So
Hmm.
there's been this divide. And I've never had that strong relationship with my father, and like even since I was a baby, like when I was a baby, like I would cry when he would come near me, and I think that kind of stopped that kind of relationship. Like he didn't want to be close to me, kind of thing. And
Hmm.
um, you know, growing up because we were different because I was always kept keeping to myself, quite introverted, anxiety. Um,
Hmm.
he kind of made me feel bad for being different and
Hmm.
would say stuff to me. And I've only recently realized like that stuff affected me
Yeah.
and it held me back in life. And
Yeah.
that's why we don't have that relationship. Like I don't feel comfortable talking to him about my passions, my feelings. And, and it's hard, like, because I understand, I don't know his full story, but I understand that he has his own childhood traumas and, domestic
Hmm.
violence and stuff growing up as well, which has affected him. And he
Yeah.
hasn't dealt with it, which is, he's just doing the best job that he can with what he has. So I
Yeah.
do understand that, but not having a strong relationship with him has really affected me growing up and held me back from feeling that I can't be myself,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Ah, totally. Totally makes sense. It's great that you're aware of it. Like it's so powerful that you're aware of it for your own life and the improvements that you can make and triggers and that kind of stuff, but also working and talking with other people in a similar situation. And also it's like just say if your dad wasn't there or your mum and dad split up for some reason, well, that would almost be an easier way to go, oh, I feel like this way about my dad because he wasn't there. But it's almost harder for you in some way, or it could have been harder for you in some way to not have a relationship with your dad the way that you probably would have hoped to, and he lived in the same house.
Yeah, it is. It's fucking hard sometimes because
Yeah.
like I'm walking around a house and I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable being myself sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be
Yeah.
tough, and as I said, it has affected me. But now, like recently, this year, I've kind of learned a lot about myself and why I acted and why I've done certain things growing up, and it's like a weight lifted off your shoulders when you're self aware and you kind of realize all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool. And I think one of the things that I like also wholeheartedly believe is so you're obviously really aware of your anxieties and anxieties even now and how anxieties say when you were growing up, which probably were far more intense. I'm
Mm.
guessing,
Yeah,
maybe not, but yeah. So my anxieties used to come in another way, or sorry, come out another way. So like I still had, I guess, similar triggers for anxiety, and anxiety would have like initially felt similar in our bodies, but my release for anxiety was very different. So my release for anxiety was that I used to get angry, and then when I used to get angry, particularly with say a 19-year-old, or when things used to really start getting kick in when I was say getting triggered by people or experiences that started to become violent with other males and that kind of stuff. So my anxiety. So I was triggered by something, my anxiety kicked in, and then what happened was my anger got rid of my anxiety. Well, not really got rid of it, but released what anxiety in a way that the only way that I knew how. So that's how I guess I dealt with it. So I still had anxiety, but it presented very different. And
yeah,
I guess that's really common for men. I had a doctor of psychology from Toronto on my podcast a couple of months back, and she was able to discuss with me this kind of thing, exactly, that how anxiety for men can commonly come out in anger, and so whether it's anger to other people or anger at themselves. So yeah, it's a really common way to release that emotion, or those feelings, or that energy. So yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like you said, you expressed your anger and your anxiety outwards, whereas I did it inwards towards myself.
Yeah.
And I think why I did that is because growing up, I seen my dad, express his anger outward, and I was like, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be like that. So
Yeah.
I learned to express it inwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. How do you feel about your anxiety now? What kind of relationship do you have with it now?
Um, it still gets bad, but
Mm-hmm.
ever since starting this podcast and putting myself out there out of my comfort zone, and
Mm-hmm.
now becoming more self-aware, about myself and how I act, it's gotten way better, and now I can implement coping mechanisms to prevent me from getting bad anxiety.
Okay. What's the worst that it got, do you think?
Um, for me, it's more so social anxiety for me. So,
Yeah.
man,
Which is probably the most common one, I think.
yeah. So I would hate going into new environments because I would not
Mm-hmm.
feel safe at all, and I would get so sick, like sick to the point where I'd be vomiting, and like
Mm-hmm.
so fatigued and just want to stay in bed.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, what I've learned about anxiety is it's actually fear. Like, I've acknowledged that
Mm.
it's fear, and it's something that it's a sign of something that you need to head towards, something you need to deal with. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I've come to learn about it. And
Mm-hmm.
all these years, when it kicked in was when I was, you know, interacting or socializing with other people,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a sign that I actually had to do that. But I actually, all those years, I held myself back because I thought I have to stay in my shell. I can't leave my comfort zone. It's so scary. But now I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck that. I'm gonna use this fear as energy, and
Yeah.
there's always growth on the other side of that fear.
Yeah. That's yeah, that's a perfect way of explaining it. And anxiety is actually, as you said, it is fear. And the interesting thing about anxiety is that most of the time it's fear that's things that you've just made up in your head that may never actually happen. It's just yeah, it's just made up stories that may actually happen, may not even actually happen anyway, may never have happened before. But what it actually is a part of your brain that has been triggered by something. And when you kick in that survival state, what it just wants to do is just keep you safe.
Mm.
So that's what anxiety is trying to do, is just trying to keep you safe. I'm sure you know this already, but I guess a lot of people don't know that kind of stuff. So anxiety will try to tell you anything through thoughts that may, or through things that may not actually even happen. It will try to tell you that these might happen just to keep you safe, just to keep you in your safe world. And as you say, like things really change when you start coming out of your comfort zone. But initially, your brain doesn't like that.
No,
So
no,
that's what I find so interesting.
yeah, and it's so true. Like, you create so many scenarios and narratives in your head. Like, if I just had to go have a meeting with someone, like back, a few years ago, I would
Yeah,
create like so many different scenarios of every possibility that could happen. And then I'd go
yeah,
to that meeting and none of it would happen. And I'd leave
yeah,
that meeting and I'd go, what the fuck did I do all this for? Like, why did I build up all this anxiety and fear in myself? Like, it was just a meeting. Like, everything went fine. And it's
yeah,
right. It can get really hectic sometimes. And you think to yourself, why do I do it to myself, really?
yeah, yeah. I reckon so. Yeah. So as you said, your relationship with anxiety now, your own anxiety now, I guess your understanding has improved in the past couple of years, or past year or so. You
Yeah,
said.
this year, yeah, it has improved like dramatically.
Yeah, I think I would say my relationship with myself and things to do with anxiety and the triggers for anxiety, for self doubt and rejection, all that kind of stuff. They've definitely settled down, and I've realized um, they've settled down because I've realized, like, things like anxiety although they're triggered by things that aren't great, we have access to something extremely special. And when we can start to harness that, like you have already with doing podcasts and that kind of stuff, like, if you know what, you might agree with, you might not. If you didn't have anxiety, do you think you would have started a podcast? Like, do you think you would have started these adventures? You think you would have started these projects? I certainly know that if I didn't have my energy, which is probably started from anxiety and fears and all that kind of stuff, if I didn't have that energy, like I jump around like a 25-year-old and I'm 37, and I probably will be up till the age of 50 or 60. I've got this special energy, and it probably comes from anxieties through being triggered in certain things. But like, if I didn't have this, I wouldn't be able to handle all the stuff that I handle. So I honestly feel with my whole heart and soul that, and this anxiety that we talk about is a gift, and we've just got to learn how to use it.
Exactly, man. It's spot on. Like, I'm grateful for my anxiety and everything that's happened in my life because, as you said, I wouldn't have started this podcast. I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't
Mm,
for that. If it wasn't for me realizing that I need to start using this anxiety as an energy source and stepping out of my comfort zone to
yeah,
do what I'm doing and inspire people and, talk about mental health and all this kind of stuff that, a lot
yeah,
of people go through, yet it isn't spoken about.
yeah. And I'm stoked that more people are becoming aware of it in Australia, say anxiety and depression. But I want people to talk about it more like this, like the way we are, and the way that you do on your podcast is that it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Well, it doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
yes, giving attention to it is great, but there are also ways to have a better handle on it. And what I also believe myself is, and I think maybe this is a part that maybe some people, whether they agree with it or not, but I think particularly with anxiety and depression, because there's this thing called comorbidity. So like, if you've got anxiety, you most likely have experienced depression, or if you experience depression, you're also most likely to experience anxiety. And I'm not sure if you have that kind of thing yourself. I know definitely I have in the past, but I think we've got to be careful the way we talk about it. So that, like, say, if I can say, okay, I used to suffer anxiety or I used to suffer depression, but I would never talk about it that way now. I wouldn't say I suffer it anymore, although I experience it and I may have used to suffer it, but I don't suffer it anymore. And the reason why I don't suffer anymore is because I'm aware of it and how ways to handle it. And that might maybe something that people don't agree with, but that's something that's the way I like to talk about it. Because I think if we continue to say, even though we've got strategies, that we suffer from it, that like, I think it puts a cap on how much we can handle it, like, personally.
Yeah, I agree. And I had someone else on the podcast and they said, like, you choose to suffer. Like obviously you may have depression, you may have anxiety, but
Mm.
it's up to you to kind of understand yourself more and educate
Mm.
yourself because you can't manage something if you don't know what it is.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
we're spreading awareness, we're talking about it, but you got to do that inner work within yourself and acknowledge who you are as a person and what your experiences tell you about yourself. And if you're having a lot of down days, if you're just don't want to get out in the bed in the morning, like that's a
Mm.
sign of something that you need to change or something you need to talk to someone about. you know
100%.
you choose to stay in bed every day and suffer,
Mm-hmm.
or you
Yeah.
can choose to get out of bed, talk to someone, and manage what your emotions and your feelings. So that's my kind of take on it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when I talked about my vision impairment time before, although I handled the time and I never had those extreme coping mechanisms, you know what I wanted to do all day, every day when I wasn't working, I didn't have my business? I wanted to fucking sleep all day. That's what I wanted to do. And there might have been 2 or 3 days out of a week where I might have got up and walked, but I was staying up all night. I was sleeping all day. And that brings up an interesting point for me, because my coping mechanism for a lot of things previously, not so much now, is wanting to stay in bed all day. Not that I ever really happens, and it hasn't happened in a long time, but that's how how I experience it when I know a down day is either coming, or not a down day is coming, but maybe if I've had a not so good day, well, then the next day I might wake up and not want to get out of bed. Not that I ever would now, but that's how it used to be. But now, you know what I do? Like, you might have seen some of the things that I do, or some people that, following me on social media, I like getting up at 4 o'clock. I like getting up at 4:30, that kind of time. And one of the reasons, the main reason why I like doing that is complete fucking opposite of who I used to be, and that person who didn't have self-worth, didn't have self-respect, didn't have all that self whatever it is. And I combat that by doing the opposite of what I feel like. So I used to, when I first started to get up early, I still wanted to sleep in all day, and get out of bed for work the latest as possible. So I used to start work at say 8:30, and I used to get out of bed at 7:30. And that's how I used to be. So I love doing the opposite of that now. So people might see me on social media or talking on my own podcast about getting up early. That's not fucking easy, but I do it because I know I need to, and it's really fucking good for me.
Yeah, having a good routine in your life, man, it's so good, especially a morning routine. If you can have a
Yeah.
great morning routine, man, it sets up your day so
Yep.
wonderfully. And like as you said before, like when you work, you would wake up like right before, hour before work. That's what I used to do. I just get out of bed straight into my work clothes and then go to
Yeah.
work. Now I'm up early. I go for my morning walk. I do some reading in the morning, and then
Yeah.
I go to work. So and it puts me in a great mindset heading into the day.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like proper research on it, particularly in the last, I don't know, say maybe 5 or 10 years. But a routine, particularly a morning routine, would be a significant contributor to say mental health, but also setting up your day for good mental health. It would be now one of those things that if you don't have a morning routine or even a routine during the day in some way, and look, hell, it might be a night routine, but if you don't have a routine in some way and you're having mental health issues, I think there's a correlation there. It's probably because maybe you don't have a routine. So if you don't have one, find out what you can do to get one.
Yeah, and
Go get one.
it doesn't have to be complicated either. It can just be like two or three things, simple things, gratitude, get your body moving, read 10 pages, something
Yeah,
simple just to get
yeah,
your body going and your mind flowing. And
yeah.
as you said, it's a great way to start the day.
You said something brilliant in the last podcast I listened to of yours, where you said you might not know where like the journey will take you after your first step, but you've got to start.
Yeah,
So I really
exactly.
like that. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
really cool. So same for a morning routine. Just get one thing. So like some, as you say, might be meditation, or it might just simply be getting up early, or it might be I don't know, do whatever. Like get up and watch TV. There's so many things you could be doing as long as you're not sleeping. Um, and yeah, obviously sleep is needed, but like if you're oversleeping or going to bed too late, then it's just not going to be any good for your mental health. So yeah, start somewhere, and
yeah,
that'll be the best things you can do.
that's it. And just find what works for you and then just keep going on it.
Absolutely, got to start somewhere.
That's it. Now, you're a father of a girl. How old's your daughter?
She's 6.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm actually about to be a father myself. My daughter is going to
Yeah.
be born in end of January, man. So, what's it like being a dad?
What's it like being a dad? Well, it's fantastic. It's the best thing that's probably ever happened to me. It's I think particularly for years, I grew to be a person that was relatively switched off to emotions like love for myself, love for other people. So it was easy for me to be a bit of a hard ass to other people. When my daughter came along, man, like, fucking it's the best thing in the world. Like to be able to actually like hug and love and like cuddle and be kind of that, show that gentle side that I never was able to show before. It's the best thing in the world. Best thing in the world, man. Best. I love it. It's so good. So
I can't wait.
what do you know what you're having, boy or girl?
Yeah, girl.
Okay, cool. And I see that's the thing. Like I really wanted a girl, which is probably odd for most men. Most men you would say, "Oh, I hope I have a boy." Like I really wanted a girl because I think for a variety of reasons. But we had never, from what I'd felt, we'd never really had a confident girl. And I wanted to bring up a girl who was confident, not a girl who was like, like beat up people and be confident that way. But I mean, like just a confident, happy girl where I didn't grow up with a mum or a stepmom like that. So that's why I'm like, yes, we've got a girl. We can do that. So, but also like that protection feeling as well. Like as a dad protecting his daughter, man, it's, you're probably starting to feel it already.
Mm.
It's so cool.
Yeah, as I said, I can't wait. It's going to be a new challenge, that's for sure. But I'm very excited.
You'll be great, man. You'll be really good. The experience that you've talked to me about before will make you a really cool dad.
Appreciate it, man. And since being a dad, what are some lessons or something you've learned about yourself?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. Um, yeah, I think that's the thing. I think what I mentioned before, being able to, like, for so many years, particularly when I was around when I was fighting, I switched off the emotion of love, love for other people, love for my mum and dad, love for myself. When my daughter came along, and well, my wife came along, that started it. But then when my daughter came along, that really kind of opened me up again. That's been the best kind of thing, opening myself up to the emotion of love,
Yeah.
which wasn't there previously, and it's been pretty damn good.
Yeah, I had someone else on the podcast and they're a father as well, and they're like, you don't know true love until you see your own flesh.
Yeah, yeah, and also probably in addition to that is being able to use every not say great experience that I might have had, or so great, not so much experience, but feeling that I might have had to my own childhood, and being able to transform that into making sure that my daughter has the best I can give her, and not so much by giving her things, but just by giving her me and giving her the love she deserves, knowing I'm able to transform what happened into that kind of emotion and feeling is pretty lucky. I'm pretty grateful for that. So yeah, I make sure that I do my best to not waste that opportunity.
That's awesome, man. Are you gonna have more kids or?
Look, we're trying, but I'm not sure. Look, if one comes along, that'd be unreal. But yeah, even if we just have one, that'll be enough. She's certainly got the personality of three. So
I keep
yeah,
telling my partner we're gonna have 12.
yeah, I really did. I get good dad vibes from you. So yeah, you're gonna definitely have more than one. I can definitely tell that.
Appreciate it, man. And as we start to wrap up this podcast, I just got a few last questions. What does having a better life mean to you?
A better life. Well, I think that one's pretty simple for me. That I don't think I necessarily need certain things, except that I just want to make sure that I'm living to my full potential, and then that's the main outcome. And then whatever second happens secondary from that is just a bonus. I just want to make sure that I'm living to the way I should be living, believing in myself as much as what I can, giving myself like of myself as much as what I can, I say, by getting up early and that kind of stuff. That's me living life. And then yeah, by me living that way, whatever happens is a bonus.
Exactly. And how do you define success?
Well, I think pretty similarly. But if I can live in a way that is me giving as much of me as what I can, and giving as much love as what I can to, say, my daughter and my wife, and working as hard as what I can, I think that's success for me, because that's very hard, as we've spoken about before, being able to not be triggered by certain things and kind of regroup when you are triggered, and that kind of stuff, understanding and having awareness of yourself. That is success. So if I can do that initially and give the most of me, that is success. And then any other success that happens after that is a bonus. So like the success of me becoming a psych, that's great, but that wouldn't have happened unless I was able to better understand myself and have that success there. So that's success, being able to kind of get a handle on who you are and then be able to give the most of who you are. That's success.
And last question, Jamie, when your time's all up and done on yourself, what would you like to be remembered for?
Helping people get the most out of themselves.
Love it. Love it. Jamie, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. It's been a great chat. Really appreciate it.
Mate, it was an honor. Thank you so much for having me on.
And for all the listeners, where's the best place to find you on social media? Because you got your podcast, The Mind Trader. Yep.
Yeah, I've got the podcast, The Mind Tradie, and I'm also on Instagram and Facebook under The Mind Tradie as well. So that's where you can find me. Particularly, I love Instagram, so maybe find me on Instagram if you want to find me on under The Mind Tradie.
Too easy. I'll put your links in the description anyway. But thank you so much for tuning in once again. If you got some value out of this episode, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.